Hello and welcome into another installment of Mauricio's Corner. Along with Mauricio Ruiz, I'm Cole Pepper, and coming up, it's European vacation time. We'll get into what Mauricio learned on his trip to the Netherlands here recently, but Mauricio, we also had a big week in the USL Championship and some interesting developments on some of these matches we're going to take a look at.
Yeah, we had a lot of big games. Probably one of the biggest games that everyone in the league we're looking at is the Rowdies hosting Czech Republic. Rowdies, one of the hottest teams in the league. Czech Republic leading the West, coming in across the country. And it delivered from an emotional and spirited game. I'm not sure if it delivered from a quality and when those top teams kind of play each other, but certainly delivered from an emotional standpoint.
Well, you see the results there, and third game down, Tampa Bay, Sacramento with a 1-1 draw. We'll get into that just a bit more here in a moment, but some big goals scored. Memphis has been on a tear lately, a 5-1 win over Miami FC. You see the 3-3 draw between San Antonio and San Diego Loyal. And how about the 4-1 decision for Monterey Bay? We've got some goals being scored right now as the summer heats up.
Yeah, Monterey Bay is one of those teams that they can score at will. They can also get scored on a lot, so each game could be a bit of a toss-up for them. But certainly a lot of teams that are playing aggressive attacking football, and if they're inspired on that night, they can put goals up on the board. You look at Memphis 5-1, that's a great result for them.
All right, let's talk a little bit more about that monumental matchup between the best team of the West, Sacramento, and the hottest team coming in, Tampa Bay Rowdies, who have won 5 in a row. What did you learn about these two squads with a 1-1 draw on what was, as you mentioned, not necessarily the most artistic of games, but boy, it was a battle.
Yeah, it felt to everyone that was watching and really the comments from the coaches afterwards, it felt like a playoff game. Two teams that expect to be fighting for a championship at the end of the season. Certainly, they got to go through the East and the West first. But when they beginning of the season, I think they looked at each other, said, hey, that's the team that we want to prove ourselves against. So the game was heated, the game was battled. Sacramento, they don't give up a whole lot in terms of shots or chances. Rowdies were the better team in the first half, created a lot of opportunities. Probably should have scored a couple more to kind of go comfortable at halftime. The last minute of the first half, they let in a goal to kind of go in at 1-1. And then second half just becomes a bit of a toss-up, and the game got heated. Well, Rowdies finished with two less players on the field. But I think both teams will come out of that game having learned a lot about themselves and measuring against the top teams in the league.
And don't be surprised if these two teams see each other once again at the end of the year in the postseason. This could be a matchup in the finals. Let's take a look at the standings as they are as of today, starting with the Western Conference. And there is Sacramento Republic on top, but El Paso has closed to within 3 points. The Locomotive continue to rise up the table.
Well, and that result for Sacramento, only getting a point on the road. It's a good point on the road, but nonetheless, they gave opportunity to breathe in room for El Paso. See, with still a game at hand, they win their next game. They get up to 13 matches played. They can equal Sacramento for the first time, have a share of the lead of the West, which is they really haven't shared with anybody for the last 7 weeks. So you can see San Antonio, San Diego still staying very relevant in the pursuit and in the hunt for first place.
And you see that the playoff line, the top 8 in the conference will make it into the postseason. Right now, you have Colorado Switchbacks and Phoenix Rising at 16 points, the bottom 2 that are safe right now, but not a lot of space in between the teams that are in as of right now and New Mexico United, and you've got Orange County. This is going to be a battle all the way down, I think, to the end of the year.
Absolutely, and I see Oakland right there in the middle too. A team that's just slowly climbing. A couple weeks ago, we're looking at them. They're right on that line that you're mentioning. Now they're sitting in 5th place, only a couple points away from kind of getting to the top of the league. A team that's starting to find their feet as well. So a lot of league to play, but I think we have a good representation of where teams stand today after 13 weeks.
Now to the East, where Charleston Battery's been on top, but a loss last weekend. Now suddenly things are getting tight with the Pittsburgh Riverhounds just a point behind, and Louisville with a game in hand now just 3 points behind. Look at that logjam, 24, 23, 21, and 21, just 3 points separating the top 4 teams in the East.
Yeah, in Charleston, I mean, they're staying at the top right now, but they're having a tough time holding or increasing that lead. You look at the West, Sacramento has been increasing that lead at the top. Charleston have kept everybody else in the hunt. Pittsburgh is having a really good run of games right now. They're also in the U.S. Open Cup, but that hasn't slowed their play down in the league either. And the Rowdies in Louisville, I mean, they missed, or they had an opportunity to really kind of climb up there. Louisville's still a game at hand, as you mentioned. They get a result going into this weekend. They're going to be fighting for the top spot as well.
All right, let's turn our attention now to some international flavor. Mauricio was among the dignitaries who went to the Netherlands to check out what was going on in terms of women's soccer there in Europe. You had an awful lot of great experiences over there in a very short amount of time. Give me the summary of what you saw and what you learned.
Yeah, Cole, it was a really wonderful experience to see what Europe are trying to do, in a way, trying to catch up to the U.S. as far as performance on the field. But the UEFA and the individual countries and federations, they're really trying to be intentional about the growth of women's soccer. A lot of leagues there aren't what you consider professional leagues in order to be able to pay all of their players an amount where they can live off of playing football. And they're aware of that, but they're trying to increase not just the product on the field from a youth development standpoint and player professional development, but also everything that encompasses the game, from refereeing education, from coaching education, executive education. And it's a really combined effort from all of the federations in the country. And we were specifically hosted by the Dutch Federation. And just to see the innovation and the creativity that they're having inside their league, but also in collaboration with the other leagues in Europe, are pretty standard.
Part of that is technology as well.
Oh, sure. So the Dutch Federation realized that refereeing, as we all know, and we hate to admit, are a huge part of the impact the game. So what they decided to do a few years back, when VAR became a realistic thing, and really VAR is still in its infancy, in many ways, but it's certainly here to stay. They decided to invest in an innovative center. And as a Dutch Federation, inside their KNVB campus, they built an innovation center of a VAR center. So they not only educate the referees, but every Dutch match, men and women, the VAR is held inside their innovation center, that you call it. It's a beautiful technology center with all the hubs where you can kind of see on TV. But they bring in other leagues, such as the German league, even MLS and other leagues around the world, to really educate themselves on how to grow and how to evolve the efficiency of VAR, which is something that obviously is always up for discussion. So the Dutch Federation, as I mentioned before, they're not just interested in the growth of performance on the field, certainly are, but also everything else that encompasses the game, and refereeing being a huge part of that.
All right, one of the other things I thought was interesting is the kind of reaction and the thoughts from some of the folks in women's football in Europe as it relates to what's happening with the USL Super League.
Yeah, really excited. When you walk into a room in Europe as a USA women's soccer representative, we're at the top of the pyramid from an international performance standpoint, right? The U.S. Women's have back-to-back world champions. So they're looking at us a little bit in a very revered kind of manner, trying to figure out what we've done right, but in a way we're trying to educate ourselves on what they're doing right. But the Super League specifically, where you got to draw a lot of attention, there's a block in top European players playing in the U.S. because of the current league and their calendar. The Super League calendar will be an international FIFA calendar that players that are playing for the top nations, such as Holland, England, Spain, will no longer have to decide between club and country, because the Super League will be honoring that FIFA calendar. So whenever there is an international break, our league will also break, and they'll be able to represent their country, which is a massive improvement in what currently happens in the U.S.
Which could lead to some great players coming here to play right here in Jacksonville. All right, the other part of that trip, of course, was for the UEFA Women's Champions League final. Boy, you got to experience a great one.
Yeah, it was, from a Champions League standpoint, it was the top club game in the world. Barcelona, a renowned name in kind of world football, and their fans were there to represent it. And Wolfsburg, which has really been a powerhouse in Germany. So just to be in that environment from a soccer standpoint, the quality of the game, the atmosphere, but just really a celebration of women's soccer around the world. To see what the capability, 33,000 people in a stadium, PS Eindhoven Stadium, and just the buzz that kind of brought around, it really felt like a top level event. And if we can recreate that over and over again, only 2%, one of the rooms that we went to, it was a UEFA study, only 2% of all sports, soccer-specific profit go towards women's soccer. So imagine when you look at that event and you see the magnitude that it's currently bringing, the attention that it's bringing, if more investment, which is kind of what the Super League is, and ownership, certainly here in Jacksonville, are interested in doing, they're excited about doing, the more you invest in women's soccer, over time, it's not going to happen overnight, but if you can kind of win your small battles over time, that could be happening here in the U.S. as well. The Super League is talking to the CONCACAF to bring in a U.S. Open Cup, to bring in the Champions League here for the U.S. and women. So there's a lot of these really innovative and fun initiatives that are happening. And in 5-7 years, you're going to see the Champions League for women happen here in the U.S. as well.
It's going to be exciting. One of the reasons I'm so excited about what's happening on the women's side with JaxUSL in the future as well. As for the men, the Champions League final comes up on Saturday, and you can join us to watch. Big matchup, of course, between Man City and Inter Milan. Kickoff is at 3 o'clock on Saturday, and we'll be at the Island Wing Company at Bartram Market. It is free to attend. However, we ask that you do RSVP. You can do that by going to JaxUSL.com. Quick thought on Man City against Inter Milan?
Yeah, I think you're silly not to put your money on Man City right now. I mean, they can capture the trouble. It's something that's eluded. The Champions League in general has eluded Pep Guardiola in a while, and they're hot. They're a hot team right now. Inter Milan's a great story, certainly a capable team. I think a lot of Inter Milan fans will be happy to see them in the final and win it, but I think the money's on Man City at the moment.
Going to be fun on Saturday. Well, that'll do it for us here on Mauricio's Corner. For Mauricio Ruiz, I'm Cole Pepper. Thanks so much for joining. Be sure to subscribe to the JaxUSL channel for the latest on soccer coming back to Jacksonville.